It finally happened. Baker is on his way to Carolina. The teams agreed on a conditional 5th round pick that could turn into a 3rd. Baker also agreed to take a small pay cut, and the Browns will be paying the majority of his salary. So, what does this mean for the Carolina Panthers? Well, in today's video, we're going to look at some film and with some additional added context, begin to understand that very question. We'll begin to see how Baker has been criticized and praised fairly and unfairly at times, and assuming that they're bringing him in to be the starter, how they can get the most out of him and what kind of quarterback he really is. There's obviously a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Baker's career so far has been an absolute roller coaster. From having a fantastic rookie season to a horrendous second season to his 3rd season in 2020 where he absolutely tore up the league, putting up amazing numbers and being the 8th best PFF graded quarterback on an 11-5 playoff bound Browns team that would go on to win a playoff game and be very close to winning 2. And then last year might have been his worst yet. And people's perception of him seemingly changed with the wind blowing season to season, everyone following the numbers and not looking at what was really going on. He has so much swagger, all the moxie, he's just one of the boys, us against the world mentality. He put up top 10 numbers and he's a top 10 quarterback. And in those seasons where things weren't so good, he's immature, non-coachable, super inaccurate. He put up the 29th best numbers and I wouldn't trust him to play on my local JV team. So which one is true? Well, to answer this question, we need some context and we need to look at some film. This Browns team wasn't even close to where it was his rookie year, and this offense looked like an extension of his days in Oklahoma. And looking back, this was my favorite and I think the best version of Baker we've seen so far. Maybe not statistically, but for what the team was around him and how he led the offense individually, this was it. The next year was one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. Freddie Kitchens called a game so poorly that a lot of the plays didn't even have checkdowns. It was just pushing the ball down the field 24/7 with long developing routes, with seemingly no care to run any short concepts to get the offense in any sort of rhythm, and never tempting the defenses to play aggressively. And in his statistically best season in 2020, Kevin Stefanski brought in this offense where he put Baker in a much more limited role. A lot of running and play action over the top, the same offense he ran in Minnesota all those years and what the Titans and Niners still run. And looking at 2020, he was hurt, flat out just injured. He partially tore his labrum in week 2, fully tore it in week 6 against the Cardinals, and finally had surgery on it before his week 18 matchup when they were officially eliminated from the playoffs. And instead of being respected for toughing it out an injury he probably shouldn't have been playing with in the first place, we defined his whole career and what he's worth and what he was producing in these hurt games, which didn't even slightly match what he was able to do in the first 2 weeks of the season when he was healthy, or all of the previous season. And to give an example of what this might be like, this is if Lamar Jackson played all last year with a sprained MCL. I don't think anyone would be saying, oh, Lamar can't run the ball, he's not a very good runner anymore. I think almost everyone would attribute this to the injury, but we don't give Baker the same luxury. We just say he can't throw it anymore. This combined with one more thing we need to talk about is what I take issue with most before we get into some film. We also define him now as a limited quarterback, a system guy. Kevin Stefanski made this Browns a run-first team because they had an amazing offensive line and 2 great running backs. And a healthy Baker Mayfield performed very well in the first year of this offense in 2020. But to the Carolina fans, to know what you're getting, Baker Mayfield is limited. When he's played as a limited quarterback, he can make the throws over the middle of the field off play action. However, we defined him as the system guy because he performed so well with it, even though this isn't what Baker is best at. I think when Baker is at his best is when he has 3 to 4 wide receivers, he spreads it out in gun with actual route concepts, when he can read the defense pre-snap, go through his progressions, and push the ball down the field only when necessary. this is when he's at his best. Like how he dominated the college scene and in his first year in the NFL. He can see the field so much better, and he has the arm talent much more similar to a Kyler Murray. But we don't see Kyler in this system role. Cliff Kingsbury lets him spread it out and let it fly. And Baker can truly sling it with the best of them when he's healthy. And we don't give him this credit anymore. His 5.8% big time throw rate ranks 5th among the NFL since entering the league, only behind Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Matthew Stafford. And to give one more example, tying this back to Lamar Jackson, let's say he was put in an offense where he had very good receivers and they asked him to throw the ball 90 to 95% of the time. Let's say he did very well in this. Well, can we say that Lamar's a throwing quarterback now? Well, he's in a system that allows him to be a very good throwing quarterback. This is how I see Baker's situation. Lamar Jackson is truly at his best when he's allowed to use his legs, just like I think Baker's allowed to when he's able to sit back and gun and just let it rip. So not only do I think he's being brought in to be the starter of this Panthers team, but in this new offense, I think we could see Baker how he was actually supposed to play in the NFL all of these years. And let me emphasize this one more time because it's counterintuitive in a sense. He was limited by playing as a limited quarterback. But let's look at some film. And so now we're going to look at some clips from the 2021 season, some before he was hurt and some after, but none of these are going to be from the typical Kevin Stefanski offense when Baker has his back to the defense, off play action, and having 1 to 2 reads over the middle of the field. This is when it's usually in a third and obvious passing situation when he's allowed to have 3-4 receivers on the field and able to read the defense pre-snap, dissect them, and push the ball down the field. And hopefully this will be a lot more similar to what he runs in Carolina. This will allow DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, who will get over it if Baker plays well, Terrace Marshall Jr., and Rashad Higgins. This allows them to get down the field and run as many route concepts as they want because whether we like it or not, Baker still has a big arm and can be highly accurate. There was a reason why they were preseason Super Bowl favorites going into the year. A lot of this had to do with Baker and how well he was performing in the 2020 season. And he was throwing the ball down the field with accuracy with a lot of pace on the ball, and all of a sudden he couldn't start doing this, and like Lamar Jackson, like we would attribute his lack of running to the injury, we didn't do this with Baker. And hopefully this can take a lot of Christian McCaffrey's load off of his plate, keeping him healthy for an entire season and allowing fantasy owners to breathe a sigh of relief as their first round pick was no longer wasted. Because this Carolina offense is so much better with them on the field, what we can see Baker Mayfield do is what he's truly best at. What he did in Oklahoma that won him a Heisman Trophy. He can push it down the field when he needs to, but he doesn't always have to. He has no problem throwing it underneath. Can he get a little cocky with his arm and start to push it into tight windows when he doesn't need to? Absolutely. But I believe with proper coaching, we can see Baker Mayfield come back to what he was in his rookie year and in his 2020 campaign with a proper offense and not playing this role as a limited quarterback because Baker Mayfield isn't one. And I'm not saying he's a perfect quarterback by any means, but people like to pretend that he's not even a top 40 quarterback anymore or he doesn't deserve to be a starter. I believe he belongs in the top 15 to 20 range, and with this, with a proper team around you, with some weapons like Carolina has, you can win games like he did in 2020, and we forget how close they were to beating the Chiefs in the second round of the playoffs. And if this trade was coming off of Baker's 2020 season and not this last season, I bet Carolina fans would be absolutely pumped, and this Deshaun Watson side would be a lot more confusing because not only are the Browns now in such a horrible spot where they're probably going to have to pay 2 quarterbacks and not get to use any one of them, but I think they just gave Carolina a much better quarterback than they were expecting. And if it's up to me, if I have a choice between Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield for what you can bring the most out of the offense, I think Baker Mayfield isn't the same as Jimmy G. He can push it outside the numbers and laser it all over the field. And I'll emphasize this again, Baker Mayfield is not a perfect quarterback. He has his flaws, but we're going to look at some plays, all of these after he fully tore his labrum and played through this injury. In 2020, he only had 8 interceptions, and a lot of these interceptions like we're seeing here are just overthrows, just the ball sails on him, and he even said, and even the Browns coaching staff said, that his accuracy was highly impacted by his shoulder. So can we expect to see this in Carolina? To me, I don't think so. So if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm not putting the 2021 tape on to see what kind of quarterback I'm getting. I'm looking at the 2020 season. I'm looking at his rookie year highlights where he was a top 10 statistically quarterback. Now, is he a top 10? I don't think so. I think he did have a very good team around him. But with a quarterback room of Sam Darnold, Matt Corral, and PJ Walker, is Baker Mayfield the best option and going to give you the best chance to win a game almost every Sunday? I think the answer is a resounding yes. So to wrap things up, what I think Baker Mayfield is getting is just a fresh start. How the coaches, the front office, and the fans started to treat him by the end of his time in Cleveland, I think it was time for him to move on. And I think this fresh start happens week 1 when they play the Cleveland Browns. If he can immediately go in there and win, he can win over the hearts of Carolina fans. He can play healthy football. And if he's in a system that I think he was always destined to play, that I think he can go out there and play very good football. And that 5th round pick or 3rd round pick will look foolish by the Cleveland Browns, and Carolina can be staring down a 5th-year quarterback and their franchise for years to come. I think Carolina is getting a much better quarterback than a lot of people are painting the narrative now. I think he's going to prove that he fits to be in that top 15 to 20 quarterback range, and he can lead a team to a lot of wins and be the reason that they win some with his ability and his arm talent to push the ball down the field. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like this video if you like videos like these. Make sure to comment down below what you think. And make sure to subscribe if you enjoy daily sports content. I appreciate y'all so much for checking out the channel. And as always, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace!